Today I'm joined by Jacob and Miguel from RevenueCat. They were in YC in summer 2018. What's the problem that RevenueCat is solving for developers?
We help them make more money by making in-app purchases easier. So making it so you can build a mobile app and make money and it's not so painful.
So a lot of YC companies, when they join YC, they apply with an idea, pivot, figure things out. It might take some time, eventually land on a new idea after some months in ADMAs. That's not you guys. When I first met you, you knew exactly the problem you were solving, exactly what you wanted to build, and had a good idea on how big it's going to get. So that's unusual, and it's been consistent from the day you did YC. Tell us what that problem was.
In-app purchases are hard.
They used to be harder.
Yeah, well, before we came along.
Yeah.
But yeah, when Miguel and I worked together at a company doing mobile apps we started working together in 2011 or something like this.
Yep.
And yeah, we were one of the first companies to build subscriptions on mobile, and it was just such a painful process. Like the app stores were tough and they had multiple app stores.
You built this thing yourself for another company before you started.
We actually did it multiple times too. Yeah, you keep iterating and also
tear it down and
the
rebuild.
things change.
We really didn't know what we were doing. Yeah, I mean, probably half of our engineering efforts were just around monetization. And we were a very small team, but because of that, it was like engineering was like distracted with essentially like monetization. When you're a small team, you don't have time to be messing around with payments, right? You want to just build what your value prop is. And
the problem was how to handle subscription across platforms.
It was cross platforms.
And how to grow the business too. That was the problem. Once you find it working, then you need to analyze the data, you need to grow, do price testing, do paywall testing, things like that. So it's a lot of engineering effort on something that is not unique to your company.
Why wasn't this solved by either Apple or Google at the time?
I mean, there's a bit of it's their sort of monopolies on their store, so they don't really have an incentive to compete to make their payments system better. So not to say they don't do a lot. Like they're really powerful systems, but they don't have that same level, I think, fit to finish as like a free market solution would.
And also they're different. You need to unify everything if you want to see the full picture. So that's already a big challenge.
No matter what, like they're not incentivized to make it work well with Google and vice versa, right? So like we provide that layer as well, right? So it left a lot for developers to do. And it was just like purely a loss for the app stores. Like developers were spending time on things that consumers don't really care about, right? So it's like, it was just benefiting nobody.
I think one thing that is very important too is the fact that even though we knew the problem really well, we solved it for one particular app and we needed to solve it for tens of thousands of apps.
There was some benefit there too, of like we were able to take, we had a strong opinion. Like we were like, hey, this is how it should be done. And we were kind of able to bring a lot of companies like into that fold, like the RevenueCat way. Like come into like, this is how you should look at your data. This is how you should do your subscriptions. This is how you should manage this stuff. And we kind of set a standard too, which I think was good. But yeah, like we had lived that suffering, which like made those first initial customer calls so easy. Cause like I was like, hey, like I know what you're going through, right? And like you can trust me.
Yes.
And that's huge in the beginning.
But most people who experience a big problem at a company and they solve it aren't leaving to start a company. Like why did you two guys leave to start a company?
I mean, I had always wanted to start a company. I had like entrepreneurs in my family and stuff like that. But I'll say like, it wasn't until much later that I realized like, oh, this can be like financially very lucrative. I guess
How late did you figure that out?
Probably like Series C.
Oh.
Maybe Series B. Because at first it was like, this is just like a cool thing. We lived in Silicon Valley for a long time. We were as engineers, and like I'd seen it, but I never thought of myself as like somebody who could play that game. Like I was always like, oh, I can be here, but I'm like sort of not on that level, or like I didn't really. And even when we started the company, it was just kind of like, oh, I don't know, it sounds like a fun thing to do, with a friend.
I always wanted to do it because I always liked the 0 to 1, which is interesting now because we're at a different stage and you need to
0 to 1 only lasts a finite period of time.
Exactly.
Right?
If things are going good, yes, that's what's going to happen. But yeah, no, I also respect this guy a lot and really enjoyed working with him. And I think it was like the right time, the right problem, the right person.
We had talked about turning the idea into a business much earlier than we did, like 2 years earlier, because we were just like, this is obviously undifferentiated work that should be a service. So we were shopping. We were trying to find somebody that did it. And then we just, life and just the timing wasn't right. And eventually I was like, I turned 30 and I set a deadline for myself. I was like, when I turn 30, I'm going to do a company. And I was like maybe 6 months late, but like kicked it off.
You and me sat in a conference room at YC back then. You were just like, with a lot of clarity, describing exactly what the problem was, where you're going to build. And to me, actually, that this could get, everybody had this problem, it's going to get really big. but you had no customers at that point. So, but you were still very confident that this is going to be a thing. And the cool thing about you guys is like, it actually turned out pretty much exactly the way you described it in that conference room in 2018. At least for the next like 5 or 7 years is sort of like been consistent.
It's uncanny. Sometimes I had like a big doc I wrote for myself like back before I even called this guy to be like, hey, let's start. Like, it was like, okay, how big can this get? How is this gonna work? What are gonna be our, and like, 80% of it kind of, and I don't know if it's because we were working off of the doc or because I was just really probably more the doc informed the world.
It's interesting to see that a lot of the things that we were discussing and we were thinking of building back in 2018 are now starting to be fully realized.
Even like our dream product roadmap from then, it took us a long time to get to the point where we could do it, but like we're still building something we had written down in 2018.
So maybe go back to the batch a little bit. So how specifically did you get the first like 5 customers? Like what, like the specific things you did, or like first 10?
I would just reach out because I was an iOS developer and that was always like a pretty in-demand skill set. So I would just email them and be like, hey, can I get access to your code and like fix some problems for you? And then I will add my SDK. That's the exchange. You don't have to pay me. Just let me add this and have 1% of your revenue in perpetuity. You know, that got us into a few. Turns out though, like, timing is really hard. So like I did that for a few people, but then they wouldn't ship for like 6 months. So our first customers ended up being random people from the internet. Even during YC, like I would go, it was very much the call us and install, right? Like I'd go to their office, I'd spend a day with them. And I would always try to like, you know, you put extra fries in the bag. So I would like do the integration, but then I would like, if I found some bugs or issues with their app, I would fix them as well, just to like, be like, oh, I noticed this like page had like this like one issue, so I fixed that for you guys too. And they'd be like, oh, you know, these are teams with a handful of people, right? So these are very, very, very grateful. But it was only, I think when we got in, we started YC, we made like 5 or 6 apps using RevenueCat. During YC is like when it really started to accelerate. And that was one of the things like you helped us with, was like, you had worked with so many consumer apps that had the problem. And I think you got me in touch with like 20 of them, and maybe like 10 you switched over. Like the YC brand effect really helped, because it was like, hey, Gustaf says these guys are serious. I'll take them serious. And then we got a couple like serious apps, and then that creates this like sort of like social proof loop where it's like, hey, like, okay, not only do these guys know what they're talking about, like other people have trusted them, and so maybe I should trust them.
There was also the realization for us during YC that we got asked the question of like, oh, what needs to happen for this company to be worth $1 billion? And that was something that I had never thought in my life that it could be a reality.
Yeah,
and
group office hours, yeah. And I was like, come on, like what kind of question is that? You're trying to make it worth $1 million, so let's just start there.
Are some of those companies still using it today?
I think all of them, the ones that are extant.
Yeah. So that's product market fit.
Yeah. I mean,
basically switching over the first 10 out of 20 customers, and they all customers 7 years later.
Yeah. It was also in that doc I talked about, yeah, it's like, we may not be able to get the big, like I can't get Netflix to switch over probably, but if we can get as many apps as possible, the next Netflix will like rise up in that. And that's kind of proven to be true. Like some of those apps were pretty early stage, and now they're massive, right? So yeah, we just did anything possible. For this first 100 customers, or not even, like first 40 customers, whatever it took. And then I started to notice we had product market fit when I had to do less of that. So like when it just started each month, we were getting more customers and I wasn't doing anything. Like I was just like, everything's going slightly faster, and you don't know why. I think that's the key for like.
Yeah, for me, it was the servers. It was like.
Yeah, the servers started breaking.
Yeah, it's like, okay, how long can we sustain this load?
Honestly, we spent from like 2019, it's kind of when we were like, we might have product market fit, to like, oh my God, it's killing us. But yeah, I remember sending out, there was this like first round survey, like product market fit survey, like, oh, send this. If you have greater than 75%, you have like product market fit. And I sent it out, we had like 92% or something. I was like, because you don't want to say it, right? Because the product market fit is this mystical thing. And like so many, like there's such a graveyard of startups that thought they had product market fit and didn't. So you're like, I was so hesitant to be like, I think we have it. But eventually it's like, yeah, like I was saying, the servers are falling over, you probably.
The servers and the bandwidth, like when customers were so actively asking for things that we didn't have the bandwidth to build, it was like, okay, they really like this.
Yeah. You just feel everything feels on fire. You can't keep up. If you're having to like decide what to do every week, you probably don't have product market fit yet, right? Like if you have it, like you just have there's a list of 9,000 things to work. It's just a matter of like prioritizing.
For the people watching, let's say there's another team of 2 people wanting to sell to developers. What is your best advice on how to sell to developers? Like if you built your thing, you know nothing about go-to-market or marketing, what should they know?
I think most developers don't want to talk to sales.
Don't do sales.
So don't do sales.
And everybody's going to tell you to do sales. And you just have to, ignore them or like convince them you're doing it, but don't do it. And the reality is like you're always doing sales. It's just like doing it for developers is very different. Yeah.
How is it like?
It's like answer their questions, right? And like their questions are often technical, and then they might get into like non-technical, right? But they almost always start technical, right? They don't start with like, oh, executive stakeholders, and then we're gonna push this thing down. Like that's how like a lot of traditional SaaS is sold. Developer-based stuff is not sold like that. You can, but it's just like massively inefficient to start there and push down. It's so much more efficient to like put it out there, make it easy to use, make it easy to adopt, and then let developers just pull it in. Because like a developers, they've got a mission. They're like, I'm gonna do a thing, and you want them to find you, and then you want them to be able to put you into their product as quickly and easily as possible. And then once you have that, then it's pretty much, as long as you deliver on what your promise is, like it's easy.
And don't underestimate the long tail and the indie developers, because they are the ones that can, like, they will try a lot of stuff for you and are champions, and the word of mouth is crazy. And then they might go and work for a bigger company.
They almost all do, right? They work for bigger companies. It creates like this groundswell. They create content on their own that like then reinforces. So like, I think you can go after a lot of different scales of customers, but I think the value, especially in DevTools, of small customers is understated.
And now you guys are a big company. How big is the company?
105 people or something like that. Yeah.
How did you two make sure you don't lose touch with the customers when you're 105 people?
Well, don't worry, they find you. Honestly, Twitter, x.com, the everything app. I still like, I'm on there every day, and like customers can reach me. I'm always tweeting about our product, interacting with them. This is a small trick on a social media like X. Like I get followed by, I get followed by a lot of people, But if I see anybody as a RevenueCat customer, I always follow them back. I always follow every RevenueCat customer, and like big or small, like I don't care. Like it just fills my feed with customers, and then every day I open it up and I'm seeing like the good and the bad and what people want, and that's just like an easy way.
The conferences too. Depends on the conference. There's different returns of investment, but developer conference can help a lot, and you end up seeing a lot of people in person. And in person is more useful to know what things are working well and what things are not working well, and what their frustrations are. And people are very honest.
You really like have to make time for it. And what I just do is anytime a customer reaches out and like wants a meeting, pretty much I'll say yes. And even if I'm busy, I'm like, I will say yes, because I know it's good medicine. Like I just need to be having these conversations. Even if they haven't asked for me, that's maybe I don't care that much or whatever. I just get in a room, talk to them, hear their problems, and that will inform.
Can you kind of enforce that or try to inspire that to the team?
Absolutely.
I always say they're not the Pope. Like you can just talk to the customer. Like you don't need a request. There's no formality. Just send a customer an email, get them on a phone call. Like everybody has permission to talk to. I don't think that's true at all companies.
No, it's not.
It's crazy. And I mean, maybe there's reasons for that at scale, but it's like, I figure if somebody can't have a like normal conversation with a customer, you're probably not fit for my team. You know what I mean? Like that should be like a bar that you can just like talk to a customer. But yeah, we try to encourage people. And that's also what, X is good for, wherever your customers are.
Exactly.
Just getting your team there too, so that they're like able to just have normal relations with customers and talk to them and stuff.
One thing I found extremely impressive about your company is that you've been consistent from probably 2018 until today about what metrics matters for your company, how you report on them, that you are basically sending the investor updates on the day of for like all of these years.
It's become a compulsion.
A lot of people don't have the discipline to do this because like when things go bad, they stop sending them, or when things go bad, they change the metrics. And like you've been consistent for so long. Like, is this how you run the company? Does everybody know all the metrics? Does everyone?
Everything is
Tell us about that.
I think it creates, discipline's maybe the right word, but it just creates like some reality that I have to live in. Like I have to be honest with myself. Because like my investors get all the data, like my team gets 99% of that data. If I stop sending something, it would be very obvious, right? And they would make you question why. And I if it's a Sunday or whatever, I'll do everything I can to get that. I've missed it a few times, but usually within the first 3 days of the month. And yeah, the metrics that I send in those have only changed like 3 or 4 times in 8 years, and in very minor ways, right? And so you need to just have like a consistent grounding truth to like look at, and that the exercise is as mostly for me, right? It's like to sit down, write it. A lot of like leaders on our team will also have adopted it, so organically they'll send a support update with like a similar cadence.
The transparency helps a lot because we are fully distributed in many time zones. So the only way to make sure that people know everything is to be fully transparent, because otherwise you don't know who knows what or whatever.
I know people are like, send investor updates, but it's good companies that do well send investor updates. But I'm always like, I also don't think that's ever going to help, because I think it's mostly an outcome of a personality type. Like I have noticed it is mixed on who does them, and I think it's mostly down to the person. but I also think there's a correlation between the person who sends updates and the person who is successful. I think there's like some like underlying correlated trait there.
You're a fully distributed team. Were you remote prior to COVID?
Yes.
Yeah, barely, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Just sort of accidentally.
We lucked out a little bit there.
Yeah, how did you make this call? And
Hiding in the Bay Area is not easy.
Yeah, it was hard. It was during like the peak of like FANG basically hiring everybody in the Bay Area for insane numbers. So yeah, we finished YC in 2018. We raised $1.5 million, which was that was a big seed round in 2018. And we were able to hire like 2 of our friends who were surf buddies who would take a swing and whatever. And then one guy who was like inbounded to us and just like, I love the idea, I really want to work there. After that was kind of our hiring pool. We kind of ran out. And then sort of simultaneously, we had one of the people that had joined wanted to move. And then like a friend of ours who we wanted to hire was in Taiwan. And we were like, okay, we're just remote now. We're going to try it. We copied what GitLab had done and all of that stuff. And then COVID happened like 6 months later. So we had like prepped for this. And then when it happened, it was very easy to flip that switch.
We had to adapt many things, but and again, it has advantages and disadvantages, obviously. But yeah, we've been able to hire people that we wouldn't have been able to hire otherwise. Yeah. And also we avoid all the visa immigration situation problems that I had to suffer.
If you're in a coastal, like one of the tech hubs and stuff like that, well, obviously it's like competition is kind of, it's easy. There's like recruiting events every night of the week, which is like, I'm great. Everybody should go interview and get the best deal you can. But like something about having a remote company makes people a little more, I don't say loyal, but like a little more, like they join you for a reason, right? And it's not just like, oh, because it's in my city.
And you're probably extremely competitive where they are.
Yeah. Well, that too. Like, yeah, we have a lot of like compensation leverage.
Are there things you are intentional about to run the company remote? Like what are some things that someone can learn from on how to do this well?
Having a clear compensation philosophy, and you don't need to agree. Every compensation philosophy can be different, right? But at least having it written down and consistent has been super helpful.
Just in general, systems thinking for a lot of things that like you wouldn't necessarily systematize. Like it has its benefits and downsides. Sometimes like we're just trying to fix a simple little problem, but it's like, oh, we have this big system, so now we have to like figure it out. And like Slack just becomes your office, and you're just like on Slack all the time, or like you make Slack interactions very casual. And then just everybody needs to like write and create artifacts like looms and videos and all this stuff. And I think generally it just also makes your communication culture better. I still think if I could like magically teleport my whole team into an office every day and then teleport them back to their houses, I would do that, right? I think, but I can't, right? I love when I hire people not having to really worry where they are. Like I'm just like, where do you live? I don't care. Like, are you in roughly these time zones? Yeah. Awesome. Like, let's work together. And so when I look at the team we've been able to assemble, I'm like, there's no way I'd built this team if we were like confined to a city, right? And I hear a lot of founders like being like, oh, we just spun up this office, a lot of office drama. Like we're doing this and that. And I'm like, I just don't worry about it. Like I just, we have no physical assets, no buildings. It's amazing.
And for a particular product too, it also helps having people distributed, and because we're critical infrastructure, so having somebody always up is also a good
that's
advantage.
awesome. Yeah, the sun never sets on RevenueCat.
You're in an ecosystem surrounded by Apple, Google, probably Stripe, and a few other enormous companies. Like, do you worry that one of them just like run you over one day? Or?
Yeah, I mean, to some degree.
The good news is that since you started the company, the app stores that they've built are enormous.
Yeah.
Like, which benefits you massively.
They've like 10x, right? Yeah. And there's a bit of, now with our scale, some mutually assured destruction, right? Like we're representing such a good chunk of their customers that like it would be hard for them to like hurt us too much. And we have good relationships, like both formal and informal. So we do our best there. And also obviously it's like always a risk. But I think that's just the reality. It's hard to build a business in 2025 in like a completely green field. I mean, in AI, like everybody depends on other people's models and stuff like that. And I think you can't wring your hands about loss aversion, about what happens if. It's just like if you build something massively valuable, it's very unlikely that it's gonna like disappear overnight.
When you started the company, you worked together at the previous job for how long? Like
4 years, 3 years, something like that.
No.
So you guys knew each other pretty well.
Yeah. And we were like friends too. Like we went surfing and like all that stuff.
Then you're co-founders, now you have over 100 people. Like how has the co-founder relationship changed over those years? And
it's a marriage without the good parts.
Not like any other relationship in your life. It's not like a friendship. It's not like an employee, coworker relationship. It's not like a marriage exactly, but it's kind of close to all three of those, I would say, in different ways.
What's some advice for people who are just getting started on how to like not fuck up that co-founder relationship?
Yeah, well, I think it has to start from a basis of mutual respect. If that's not there, it's very difficult, right? Like the thing that we disagree all the time, but I know we are very aligned in philosophically most of the things, so it's usually not something that it's when it's something unclear, right? And when it's something unclear, fully trusting that the decision is not to try to screw the other person. Otherwise, if you have that in the back of your head, like, oh, this person is trying to screw me, then it's never going to work eventually. And
Do you have a weekly call that just you talk about like?
Honestly, we don't. Like,
you don't. It's like
just organic.
an organic
Like,
thing, yeah.
we used to, and now it's just like we just have a if Miguel calls or I call, you pick up, like kind of deal. And then we try to, as often as we can, being remote, like we often just try to create opportunities for us to be together and hang out, and like that helps.
I think working at a startup also helps, because we saw like the good and the bad parts of a startup, like the highs and the lows. So
We were able to pick a lot of what we experienced together at that company and like pick the good parts we wanted to take and the bad parts we didn't want to take, which was helpful. But I would also say like just invest in the relationship. You know, you don't have to go on like a whole vacation together, but like, you know, if you can go to a thing and like spend some quality time and do some stuff just with your co-founder, everybody's got to figure it out for their own like balance of personalities and stuff.
So you mentioned earlier that you had no idea like how to get $1 billion company. Well, you're on track for sure.
So being part of YC and then everything post has been like progressively having somebody force my like vision further and higher, you know, because I've always just been like problem in front of me, you know, whatever. I tell people like I've been running out of excuses as to why we aren't going to be able to hit that. Do you know what I mean? Like it's been I'm like, oh, the market's too small. Oh, like I'm going to get tired. Oh, Miguel and I are going to fight and break up. Oh, like we're not going to be able to hire. Like we've kind of like progressively solved like each one of those, and like each one of those may also become unsolved over time. Like they come up and they come and go. And so now it's like, you know, yeah, I still remember that YC office or the group office hours where we had to go around and I laughed at myself.
The question was, what have to happen for you to be a $1 billion company or 100 million revenue? Like put the pieces together.
Yeah, and I just was like, I was like, I'm never gonna be able to do that.
Yeah, I was doing the math and I was like, oh, there's not that many apps.
Yeah, and that's become like one of my chips on my shoulder, because like I became in that moment like my greatest detractor, and like I didn't believe in myself. And now like a big part of my motivation is like defeating that kid, right? Defeating that guy, because like obviously we can do it, right? So now it's like, yeah, we're kind of on this trajectory where we might pass that pretty soon. And like, so it's like, well, can we do 10x that, right? Like what's a $10 billion vision look like?
Is there something
right?
in the way of that?
I mean, there's like problems, right? Like we got new markets, we got to build new things. Like we have to, you know, our market's grown 10x. Will it grow 10x again? Maybe, maybe not. But yeah, there's new and interesting problems. I think that's kind of one of the things that I would not have suspected that I would be so excited and engaged as I am, like almost a decade in. But each like layer you break out of, like the problems kind of like repeat and rhyme, but on new scales. And like, it's sort of this perpetual busy box for me. Like, oh, new interesting problems, like new scaling things. You also get to meet like really great people.
I think that's the biggest thing, is the culture. Like if you're able to build the culture, maintain the culture, then you can fix all the problems.
And you can do that as a founder. That's advice I would give to people. Like if you don't like coming to work, fix it. Like you have that power. Your investors, they might be telling you things and you like listen to that advice and then it actually makes your company worse. Like they're trying to help, but they don't know how really. So like first and foremost, make it a place you're excited to come to work every day. And then that's when the magic happens, right?
And in a way, internalizing that the journey is the thing that's the important part.
Well, because the velocity is what gets you there, right? So it's like if you can just optimize for like the day-to-day and the velocity and the excitement and the energy, like and just make sure you're like, it goes back to them every month. I just want to make sure like I have a little bit of up, like every month, something is moving in a good direction every month. And don't worry about how that's going to compound in, 120 months. Just worry about, okay, like how do I just each month? And then, yeah, suddenly you wake up one day and you look backwards and you're at the top of this like exponential slope.
I have one more question about the market. There was a case between Apple and Epic that changed a lot about what you're doing. What changed?
Yeah, so Epic's been suing Apple in a bunch of different venues. Epic tried to like put non-in-app purchases through the app. Basically, they broke the App Store terms in order to draw a case where they could bring like, essentially like an antitrust investigation against
and
Apple.
That happened.
And it happened, and they lost a bunch of their claims, but they did get a couple through. And the end, which happened recently, was like a judge came down and said in the US, like Apple can no longer prevent you from adding alternative payments to the App Store. From everything we've measured, the actual impact has been like slightly positive, somewhat minimal, which I think is like much less what people have predicted. They're like, oh, the App Store is this massively inefficient thing that's like capturing a lot of this value. It's not as far from like market optimal as people think. I think it is. It definitely is. I think my opinion would have been like, it would have been nice if we could skip the whole case, as Apple would have just like liberalized and like we could have just got here on an economics argument. But like we are where we are. But it's so funny that like I never would have thought in-app purchases 10 years in, we'd be at like the center of like a Supreme Court case. Like it's like, dude, like it's become a much bigger story than I ever expected.
Yeah.
Because what you do is so big. Like you're at the
Sneaky big, right?
Yeah, you're sort of like a thing of the really big thing in mobile.
It's kept it interesting, right? Like I've had to read a lot of amicus briefs, and we've had a couple subpoenas along the way, but like it's been good.
For aspiring founders, there are a lot of them watching this channel. What are some advice you have? Just like general things you wish you knew when you started RevenueCat?
Do YC, sure. And don't follow anybody else's advice.
Follow your heart. Yeah. I mean, I think to some degree you have to wait. You get to a point where you can truly follow your heart. There's a lot of glass you have to eat. Don't expect it to be all that fun for a while. And then there's fun parts of it. It's exciting the whole time. In like a give you a heart attack kind of exciting in some ways, right? And I don't think there's any way through that, like magically.
Oh yeah, there are hard things that you have to do.
Yeah, and just expect that. Like expect to have to talk to customers at all hours and get woken up and like have to like work long whatevers and have everybody else on your company, even though they're great, not work as hard as you or care as much as you. And that's, you know, as I say a lot, that's what the money's for. You know, that's why we make the big bucks, right?
How do you not give up?
You have a suicide pact with your co-founder.
That sounds straight away.
Like, basically, I'm not going to give him the satisfaction of me quitting first. So it certainly helps, right? It certainly helps. Yeah. I think that's where it goes to, like, build a company you want to work at. Have a mission you really care about. Like, I care more about the mission than I do, like, RevenueCat's financial outcome at this point, right? And it just happens that those things are very aligned. Yeah, I would say just, like, buckle up.
Yeah, not quitting is a big part of it. And I think if you are lucky enough to get to the whole product market fit phase, then there's a lot of things that would make you quit are under your control.
And as somebody who's come from being an employee or like first company and like all these fancy investors and all this whatever, it's like, look, if like they could do what you do, they would do what you do, right? Like, I don't mean to be like belittling the investors. It's like they're great people and like they're very important to this ecosystem, but like there is something that you can provide that they can't. So like trust yourself and like, you know, ultimately make something people want, right? Like talk to your customers. If you're producing value for people, you're gonna figure it out, right?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. It's great.